Coming to paperback and e-readers in 2021, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks on a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business in 2021 at online booksellers everywhere.
On Christmas morning, there was a bombing in downtown Nashville, and according to reports, a RV drove down into downtown Nashville, broadcasting a song called Downtown before making a message telling everybody to evacuate the area because it was going to explode. Now, police managed to evacuate the area in less than 15 minutes, and thankfully, no one wound up losing their lives as a result of this RV winding up exploding. On a further investigation, it was soon found out that the only person who lost their life was a 63-year-old Antioch man named Anthony Quinn Warner, who died in the explosion. Now, this explosion, many would see it as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of this suicide bombing, I see yet another incident in America's ongoing man crisis that I go in depth discussing in my book, The Man Crisis. And when I take a critical examination of your Anthony Quinn Warner, he fits the pattern and profile that I talk about as related to beta males in my book, The Man Crisis. And your Anthony Quinn Warner was described as a loner and a guy who pretty much stayed to himself. But it seems like as he was staying to himself for years, he was one of these guys who was living in a rose-colored world. And because he was living in a rose-colored world, he was not living in the world of reality, and he was just out here existing, basically living in his own world, and it seems like something in that world wound up disrupting it. Now, it's alleged that your Anthony Quinn Warner received a diagnosis of cancer, but that hasn't been confirmed by any sources, but that could have been the motive to trigger your Anthony Quinn Warner to wind up exploding in the rage that he had, because oftentimes with beta males, when something goes wrong in their lives, they've been simmering and boiling in anger for years, and oftentimes they explode in a rage where they want to participate in a spectrum of violent behaviors. Now, maybe this Anthony Quinn Warner felt like he wasn't making any sort of impact on the world, and he wanted to get attention for himself. And this whole suicide bombing was a way to go out with a bang, get the attention he craved from the public, and be able to make a mark in life as he saw it. Because oftentimes, with some of these beta males, they oftentimes feel like they don't belong, or they feel like they have no real connection to other people, and they want to get attention for themselves. So what they will do is go out here and, because they're living in their own world, try to do something to get attention for themselves so that they can make their mark in the world. And it looks like your Anthony Quinn Warner wanted to be infamous because he couldn't be famous. So this could be the thing that motivated him to go out here and fill his RV with a whole host of explosives, and then decide to drive down to the downtown area of this Nashville, Tennessee, because this is the most popular area of Tennessee. And what he wanted to do was get that attention by blowing up that area and getting the media talking about him. Now, that's one observation I have about your Anthony Quinn Warner. Now, another one comes from some of these conspiracy theorists that are out here who have alleged that your Anthony Warner was caught up in an obsession over 5G signals. Now, according to these conspiracy theorists, they allege that your Anthony Quinn Warner was caught up in a conspiracy theory as related to 5G, and he drove that um, RV down to Nashville in an effort to blow up the AT&T building in an effort to wind up preventing these 5G signals from being broadcast. And as a result, many people in the area don't have internet, and many other people don't have cable. And this is what many allege as related to the conspiracy as related to 5G. But that also fits within the pattern and profile I talk about beta males, because not only do beta males live in a rose-colored world, they oftentimes develop large conspiracies in their delusions in that rose-colored world. And this is one of the things that motivates them to believe that they are justified in participating in that spectrum of violent behaviors, and believe that it is okay for them to go out here and participate in doing things like these extreme behaviors, like building an explosive, driving down to an area, and then detonating those explosives in it, because they believe they are making a sacrifice that will make them appear to be a hero, and they believe that their actions are good, and because they believe that their actions are good, they believe they are justified in doing what they're doing. And this is all, when it comes down to the beta male, in his mind, he believes that he's right. And it again just shows you how many of these beta males are extremely twisted. But most people will not be able to connect the dots between your Anthony Quinn Warner and other beta males. They won't be able to connect the dots and see a pattern forming as related to the behaviors of these males, because what happened, you cannot see this as just an isolated incident, because all across the country we've had a series of violent behaviors, and oftentimes they all start to fit within this pattern and profile as related to many of these beta males. Each of these males, they may be individuals, but when you start to look at their behavior, it all fits a pattern, and it's a pattern that shows us there's something, wrong with the way these boys are being raised, and it shows us that they really don't have good coping skills. They don't really know how to navigate a course of life, and it really shows us that these guys really, they are deeply troubled, and many of them, they are men in crisis, but many of them suffer in silence. And the reason why they suffer in silence is because many of these men, they just were not really taught to go out here and reach out to others. They were taught to go out here and simmer and boil in their anger, because they feel no connection to other people. And because they feel no connection to other people, a lot of times they feel like they have no hope. And this guy probably felt like he had no hope because he just gave up on life. He transferred the title of his home to a Los Angeles woman, and he gave it to her for nothing. And he just gave up on his life, and then sent an email to his employer saying that he would no longer be working for them. And he just decided to just give up on life, and he just decided to end his life. And he decided to end his life in a way to let people know that he was here, because he probably felt like his life had no value, and he felt like if he could not get any fame from being himself, he would go out in infamy. Because, well, again, a lot of times when beta males, when they feel like they have nothing to accomplish, they have nothing to lose, and they would rather have infamy than fame. So that's what motivates them to go out here and participate in these types of bombings and other types of things like mass shootings, because they feel like their lives have no value. So they want to go out here and make go out with it in a way that lets everybody at least know them for a moment. And this just again, this guy decided to do this on Christmas Day because he wanted to go out in infamy. He wanted to make a big splash. He wanted to have an impact in his life, and he wanted his life to have some sort of significance. And this is par for the course again with the beta male, because the beta male has a lot of low self esteem, a lot of low self worth, and they want to be able to say they had an impact on somebody's life, because this man was a loner, he was an outsider, he had no connection to people, and he wanted people to know he was there before he died, and he wanted them to know that he was there in a way that would be lasting for a moment. And the sad part is that this is the dysfunctional way that many beta males think, because many beta males are never really taught how to connect with people, how to have relationships with people, or how to be able to form relationships with people, because in their upbringing, they oftentimes are taught that people are enemies or outsiders, and they don't really want to relate to somebody else. And that's what leads to them never being able to connect with others and find help for themselves and to see real people in the real world. Because as long as they're living in the rose colored world, they only see the world from that distorted view, and that distorted view makes them see everybody as an enemy instead of seeking out help from those who could help them. And this is something I talk about in the chapter of the man crisis called Suicide and the Man Crisis, because so many men, they suffer in silence because they've oftentimes bought into narratives that tell them they have to be a man, they have to stand up like a man, and that part of being a man is holding all of the feelings you have inside, and not understanding that it's not for you to hold things in. You have to get things out, and you have to get them out with licensed professionals in the mental health field like psychotherapists and psychologists, so that they can help you understand how the world works and how things aren't as bad as you think they are, and how you can form relationships with others who can give you a more balanced picture of life. Now, when I look at this Anthony Quinn Warner, he really is a textbook beta male, another one who fits the pattern and profile I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And what was really scary about him was he was a ticking time bomb that had been ticking for a long time. And what was really scary is he wound up exploding in a rage. And thankfully, nobody wound up losing their lives this time. But what's really even more scary than Anthony Quinn Warner is the fact that we have millions more beta males like him out here. And we have a crisis going on with these males, but nobody wants to talk about that man crisis in this country, because many don't want to alienate most of the women out here and tell them they've been doing a poor job with the way they're raising their sons, and many more don't want to get the fathers involved. Moreover, corporate America does not want to tell the women in America that they need to go back to the home and help nurture these sons and let the father come back into the home, because that disrupts their bottom line. So we have a man crisis in this country. No one wants to acknowledge, no one wants to confront, and it's leading to an escalation of violent behaviors like this explosion that took place in Tennessee. We're seeing more and more of these beta males simmering and boiling in rage, and then especially exploding in this rage, participating in a spectrum of violent behaviors where either they do harm to others or destroy property all across the country. And we really need to acknowledge this man crisis in this country, because it's getting worse and not better. And the reason why it's getting worse is because most Americans just don't want to acknowledge that the way we're raising boys today is creating a whole host of extremely dysfunctional males who don't know how to be men. Now, if you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behaviors of beta males, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also find it on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.